A dispute between OPPD and two homeowners has gone to court. 6 on Your Side First told us about this utility company demanding access to a power tower, but the next door neighbors didn't want heavy equipment cutting across their properties. Mike McKnight was there when both sides went before a judge.
A decades-old easement gives OPPD the power to replace towers standing in numerous West Omaha backyards. But two couples who are next-door neighbors have made it clear they don't want crews with equipment to come between them.
My argument is that they do not have a right to come on my client's property to get to their easement.
And the homeowners got a temporary restraining order that's due to expire. So they went before a Douglas County District Judge asking for a temporary injunction to keep OPPD crews from cutting through for an extended time.
And they have other ways to go through. Use your own easements. Don't cross through our property.
But OPPD argues that an alternate path to the tower means cutting through 9 fenced and landscaped backyards, while going between just the two houses would be less costly and provide more safety for its crews. The homeowners who put up these no trespassing signs on their property also want the judge to look across the street. There's an elementary school, and the neighbors say that there is concern about the safety of kids with construction equipment going this way to reach that tower. Parents park where trucks and cranes may need to get through, and children in hand, they often cross that street right in front of the preferred OPPD access to the tower.
Kids don't get out of school till 4:05, so what are they going to do? Take a break until 3 to 4:30 and let traffic die down? Who knows? I think there's got to be communication across the lines to let everyone know.
OPPD and its attorney can't comment on the request for a temporary injunction to block access between the two homes, but the property manager says the utility wants to be good partners with neighbors for the estimated total of about 2 weeks on the project, and safety is a top priority.
We're going to be hauling pieces of all that.
Worried about equipment noise, two of the neighbors battling cancer want their undisturbed rest to be prioritized.
It's just not fair. It's not fair to us what they're trying to do.
Which is?
The cheapest route, whatever's best for them.
The judge told both sides to expect a ruling on the temporary injunction within 10 days. And in the meantime, the neighbors say they're not going to sign off on OPPD equipment moving between their homes.
Yeah, go where you have more room. This isn't their first rodeo. This is their easiest option.
On Your Side near 127th and Harney, Mike McKnight, 6 News.
OPPD will seek solutions to disruptions for the homeowners, like providing hotel rooms during tower replacement. The utility says it must complete the modernization of the transmission line, which runs from 108th and Blondo to 123rd and Pacific. The utility says it's the best way to make sure customers have the electricity they need going forward.